He actually said in Scripture, and you can look this up, the kingdom of heaven is like unto a mustard seed. The kingdom of heaven, and why would he compare the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed? The mustard seed is actually tiny. It's tinier than a sesame seed. It's tinier than, what's a little black seed? The little poppy seed.
Because it started from the plane before.
That's right. The kingdom of heaven is likened to a mustard seed. He was actually giving us a scientific clue that we couldn't understand then. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed.
What does he say about the eye of the camel?
And the eye of the camel? The eye of the needle, yeah. Well, he's talking about something a little different there, but it's very similar. He said that someone who focuses only on the gross material world will not get through the eye of the needle. You know what the eye of the needle was? That was a little passageway in the wall in a camel through an eye of the needle. Well, the eye of the needle was it was kind of a euphemism that was used to describe a tiny little passageway in the defense walls of Jerusalem. They had very, very, very heavy defense walls because they'd been besieged for centuries, and these walls were very they were virtually impenetrable, and they had tiny little slits, and you had to be you had to belong to Weight Watchers to get through those slits.
It's funny you say that. They're just focusing on somewhere between the greater gravity and the less level.
Yeah.
Desirable.
Yeah, so he was literally talking about somebody who would try to bring his camel in laden with all the goods of the world. He's not going to make it through the eye of the needle. So, and he was again talking about getting to the kingdom of heaven. In other words, the kingdom of heaven doesn't exist in the grosser scale of things. I personally do not think at all that he was diminishing our desire for abundance and affluence. I do not think that was a lecture against wealth at all. I think it was a lecture against...
It was a lecture on stewardship. Stewardship.
It was a lecture on stewardship. It was also a lecture on people focusing upon the gross material things and confusing that with genuine wealth. You're not going to bring about miracles with the gross material things. Even if you're really, really wealthy, it's not the gross material wealth you hold that will be the influence and the change you bring to the world. It will be your stewardship over that wealth. It will be what you do with it. It will be the ideas and the energy you put into it and how you get the consequences of that creativity out to the world. So I don't think there was ever anything he said that should diminish our desire for affluence. But it's our stewardship of it. And that the answer to changing the things in your world don't lie in the grosser side. Everything large, gross, and substantial and material is a result of something else more powerful. And that more powerful thing just may be minuscule. As minuscule as a thought, a feeling, an intention. Yes.
I know this isn't when he talks about the Beatitudes, he says the poor shall, what is it, the poor what?
Oh, blessed are the poor, for they shall inherit the kingdom of heaven.
Yeah, blessed are the poor, they shall inherit. See, now, so in other words, if you're poor here, smaller, it gets bigger on the other side, so it's truthful.
Exactly. He was actually giving profound codes every time he talked. But one of the reasons he spoke in metaphors and he spoke in parables is so that they would have some meaning to all people on some level. And we can keep going back with them and finding deeper and deeper meanings in them.
Isn't it interesting that it probably was meant for this time?
Yes.
There had to be a certain period of time for our experience.
It had to be a certain period of time before we were ready to get that
the seed,
meaning that was in
so
it.
that we could grow to the point by which we understood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Nancy, you're absolutely right. Again, it's a beautiful parable. It's a beautiful metaphor, and yet I think it does have this extra meaning. In their day, the most dramatic comparison of a small beginning and a large result would be the mustard seed. Because if it was a fertile mustard seed, from this tiny, tiny little thing, the mustard is not just a plant, it's a tree. It's probably the equation between the size of the tree and the size of the seed probably has more distance between start to finish than an oak does to an acorn. And so it's a very dramatic message to instruct people that even from the smallest beginning, if there's life there, if there's love, if there's germination, if there's fertility, and if it's nurtured, the greatest things can come. So don't be inhibited with starting with something small. From a penny, empires have been built.
And that also tells me that to have faith in life.
Yes. Everything is potentially alive. A lot depends upon what you bring to it, whether it receives sunlight and water and nourishment. And that comes in the form of love. Walt?
Could one then say that the adamantine particles are a product of the strong gravitational field going to the weak and expanding into matter?
I think that's exactly what they are. And I think that's why we haven't found them. Because we're looking for the smallest conceivable particle in the weak gravitational field. And we're not finding it.
Will we ever be able to find it?
Yeah. When we change our paradigm of how we explore reality. So that we're not just exploring our theories. We're actually examining that which we perceive.
We just have to perceive it as the adamantine particle. We're looking at it as a very small thing. But really, we have to look at it in perspective as it's actually a very large thing. To look at it in the strong, large gravitational. That's when we're going to find it.
Yeah. I think you're right, because it is a large energy. It's a large energy force. And he clearly said that it is outside the conservational field. And it is infinitely abundant. I think it's activated by thought, but more than that, I think it's activated by feeling. I think the feeling is actually our most powerful prayer. Now, I want you to take a break, please.
Could we be seeing the effects of the adamantine particles in what they call the dark matter, the dark energy?
Sure.
Could that be what that is?
Well, it's not. I would limit it to that. But the dark, well, let me say this about the dark matter. It's only dark because we don't have the eyes to see. It's only dark because we don't have the instruments that can give us feedback from it, or the experimentations that can give us the right feedback from it. It's dark in relation to our perception and our understanding of it. It doesn't mean it's dark at all. It also could be dark in another way, in that the universe we know is basically encoded by the constancy of light. And within the fields where there is, we don't need light to be the constant. Perhaps the adamantine particle will be constant. Perhaps gravity, or perhaps our understanding of the alternating strong and weak gravity fields will be our constant, and not light. And so then we won't need the metaphor of dark energy. You see, right now, I keep thinking of the medieval image where the sailors were saying, now don't go beyond that particular point on the map, because there'd be dragons. We can't see. Nobody's been there. Well, of course, we didn't know it, but people were living on the other side of it. But our perceptions didn't give us that feedback. And so we understand our perceptions in terms of light. Our whole understanding of